Hello world. The King's Chamber level, or the combustion chamber as I like to refer to it. Let's start with the area above the King's Chamber. Of course, I should probably draw that a little bit neater, eh? The King's Chamber itself is a very rectangular room. The proportions are like 3 and 5, and you can look that stuff up. That's not a big secret. We are going to draw an elevation point right there. That's actually a break in the rock that you can see when you stand in the room. It's about high across the room. Just below this elevation is the conduit that comes out that goes to but does not breach the surface of the structure. That would be referred to usually as the north conduit. Off the south side, there's an opening that comes out and goes up. Now I'm going to expand on this size here in a second, but this is the only one that actually does go to the outside world, air. In fact, it's the only one that's appropriately labeled the air shaft. Where this comes in, it is configured in such a way that I will suggest it now and show it to you later. When the water table within this room rises, it chokes off the entrance. Now the top 8 feet of it or so is an oval. So if we look at this from the inside, right here is like an oval. So as the water level comes up, it chokes itself off. As the water level goes down, it releases itself. Now, in addition to that, where it comes into the room, this particular top actually protrudes out of the wall a bit. And to amplify things, when we look at the room head on, this view here, we actually have a square. I'm not drawing it very square, and I don't really want to impede into the other picture, but we have a square shape where this point is actually comes down to all 4 sides, and that itself comes out as a pyramid into the room. So that is a pyramid shape. Let's say it's recessed 5 or 6 inches, then this is 6 or 7 inches out. So it projects itself up into it breaks the symmetry of the room. And I believe that this is the anomaly that eventually will give us the spark in the perfect spot to combust the hydrogen, which is being pumped up from the bottom of the structure and coming in through the pit in the floor of the combustion chamber, which I believe will have to be primed with water, and that is your backflash arrestor. The gas comes into the area above the chamber where they find the seeds and the shells and dust. That is the impurities brought up with the updraft and deposited when the gas expands and comes to a nice little symmetry, just bleh, fills the room, works its way down. The pressure will push it up and through. Now, from here, you're going to get your combustion, which will create water. Now, the way the system currently is, with the boss mark, if I'm going to do it right, the boss mark would be right here, because the boss mark lines up with that little conduit. And then we'll put the chamber there. And floor line. There. Okay. Now everybody's happy. Actually, there's probably a little bit more to it. Since I'm not to scale, you'll have to give me some artistic license here. We have the thieves' tunnel. And then behind the wall that you don't see is the conduit that comes down to join into the thieves' tunnel. It actually is a conduit that runs across. Now, I should draw this at the right elevation. That conduit is actually above the line. So the conduit on this side is below the line, goes into the wall, goes up, and when it comes back down, the conduit on the other side is above the line. Now, functionally, that really doesn't matter. It's more communication and visual, because the combustion in here is going to cause, pressure. It's going to cause heat, and it's going to cause steam, and it's going to spurt water, good with the pressure, in addition to just evaporation. Of course, the boiling and stuff will enhance the evaporation, but either way, water particulates are going to come up here, condensate, and drip down. Now, if the outside of the structure wasn't built like a big Van de Graaff generator, then that wouldn't matter too much. But that water dripping down is the conduit and or the pathway that the energy uses, drips down into here, pools on the bottom there, where there's actually a little pool in the back corner there. And then once it pools and takes root, it then flows down the hall, down here, down the center shaft, and works its way down to the next layer. Along with all of this, we're going to get precipitation that's going to fall on the side, and the way it's got the ribbing, so all this is going to be more precipitation. You're going to get condensation and precipitation constantly with a downward momentum. Now we amplify this, of course, because we love to. Right behind this particular, what they like to call the boss mark, we're going to put a little trough there. And that trough is going to catch all the condensation which is forming to the top of this, catch it in that trough, and drip it down. Well, that dripping and this dripping simultaneously, and the way that we set up the rest of the system, that is going to be our Lord Kelvin drip generator. And every now and then we're going to get a spark, and that spark is going to allow combustion of the gases in here with an additional force to push the gases down, just like a pushing force. Now, since all the heat and fire in the middle pyramid is up in this area, what's going to occur is condensation down in this area. That condensation is going to be causing a lower pressure, which is going to be causing a sucking, which will help again to pull the atmosphere and the moisture and the static electricity down into the system. But the whole system is super well engineered. Now, how do we get the pool in here? Well, it's because there was supposedly a wall that they had to break through when they came through, as well as I believe they damaged other pieces that will fill in as time goes on, but those are the primary pieces. That one wall there, set to an elevation higher than that mark, would allow the water to condensate and fill that mark and fill it up. Now, I do believe that this wall was sitting on the floor. It was resting on the floor. It was not actually affixed to the floor, which would allow a trickle amount of water to always be flowing through the system. Always have a natural conductor, and what you're creating is a path of lesser resistance. Electricity will follow the path of least resistance. And if we control the environment and we give it the path of greater resistance, then the next path we offer it will be the path of least resistance. And that is really what this whole system is doing. Now, the wondrous box in the King's Chamber, you notice at the same level all these reactions are occurring. You've got squiggle marks, you've got, I think where the actual transaction takes place is right down here. That is, if that drip gets past that point down there, based on the elevation here, that's its magic point that it can get past that will carry the energy down. The rippling across the top of the structure, I'd like to see if somebody could take that and run something across it like a record needle, see if we get a specific frequency or tone. They were communicating, we just have to look for the communications and try to guess what it is. And with our current day knowledge, we're starting to put the pieces together. The fact that there was hydrogen within this room and the fact that the hydrogen was at a less than atmospheric pressure is evident by the size of the conduit that comes out of the north side. The one conduit that would be primarily filled with the hydrogen that we're looking at to be the conduit for this whole scenario. Hydrogen either by itself or bonded with water. Either way, it's the hydrogen that's the conduit that carries the energy through the system. And what other questions could I potentially answer? This would account for the signs that there were explosions within this room, because whenever this system went out, whenever that fire went out, the hydrogen would continue to come. The hydrogen is coming from the reaction in the bottom, which is a separate reaction, independent, and that would continue to pump hydrogen into the room. The static electricity is going to continue to fall upon the outside, and the way that that's engineered will continue to quarantine it to the structure itself, and that will continually make space for this spark that relights the air and the hydrogen. Now, an air is 21% oxygen, 21% oxygen. Now there's nitrogen in there, 78% nitrogen and 1% carbon dioxide and trace other elements. But it is the oxygen that's burning together, and we'll give it almost the perfect rate of the 2-to-1, the H2O. I do believe you're going to wind up with extra hydrogen in the mix, and hence we're probably just going to have hydrogen gas, which is the advantage when we get the spark here, that there's an abundance of hydrogen gas, and that hydrogen gas is the reactive element there to push the environment down the system. What other things could we get into? Oh, I could get into the configuration of the Flashback arrestor as it looks so far. The best that I can tell from visual aid, from pictures and stuff, is that there was, to my understanding at this time, a brick wall, and yes, I'm going to say brick. You can see in pictures of the gentleman that climbed the outside of the pyramid just recently, the one that spent 3 years in jail. He was 18. There are spots upon the surface of the structure where there are brick laid into the structure, and I don't think somebody went up there and repaired it. I believe that they also used actual brick, or what we look to see brick. In fact, I'd like if somebody could actually do some, if they, you're not gonna, but eventually down the road, somebody can actually do some experiment on that and find out exactly how those bricks were made, what they were made with, because the Geopolymer Institute can probably, with the knowledge of what those bricks were made from, geopolymers, you could probably confirm some things. Anyway, there was a layer of brick that had an opening that was about maybe 2 inches from the bottom. Behind that was another setup where they had a configuration like so. And what that would allow is the gas to be able to bubble into this section and then bubble out into this section. So very little resistance here. When it would push down, it would immediately bubble into there. It was trapped in this section. The gas would continue to build up until it bubbled out and over the edge. So that is the way I see their setup. Of course, it may be more complicated than that. We did break through and destroy this area looking for treasures, but there's some of the area still remaining, and that's how I see it. They probably, I'm assuming, do it that way so they don't put a lot of pressure on the hydrogen, because hydrogen, when you compress and decompress it, it likes to, it's very, like oxygen. When you have an oxygen tank and you let it out, you get like ice to form around the oxygen tank. Hydrogen likes to get hot. It likes to get cold when you compress it, but hot when you decompress it. And it does it to extreme, where, you know, the oxygen, you might have to have a big tank and let it go to actually get some ice on the outside of it. You'll get some condensation, but to really get chunks of ice on there, you'd have to be like, you know, really going at it. Hydrogen is not so fickle. Hydrogen is much more reactive. So I'm assuming that the pool of gas you'd want to keep at as constant as a pressure as possible, so that it is as least reactant as possible. Well, if there's any questions I can answer, I'd be happy to. I think I've gotten pretty much a bunch of things. Oh, the area on top of the King's Chamber is actually quite complicated. In fact, I'm looking to see if I can re-get a map. I had a map of that, but it was on paper and I lost it. And if anybody actually has back from I think it was the 90s or something, where they sent some film crew up there and they actually had some get-up of how it was done. But there are areas you can obviously see where it is done in such a way, like this is an opening and this is an opening, where the gases would have certain traps. And I'd like to reconfirm that. What I had was like a hand drawing, and it wasn't really 3D, it showed it 2D like that. And I think on a 3D scale it's even more awful, like in awe, not awful as in bad. Anyway, thank you, have a nice day, please drive through.